Have you ever experienced a moment so precisely timed, so impossibly aligned, that you felt the universe had turned its face toward you, just for a second? A name appears in your mind, vivid and unprompted, and moments later that person calls. You think of a childhood memory, and the exact song tied to that memory begins playing from a passing car or inside a store. You dream of a place you've never been, only to walk into it months later with the unsettling feeling that reality is repeating itself. These are the moments we brush aside, the ones we bury under jokes about coincidence, luck, and randomness. But when we slow down, when we take a moment to look directly at them, something else becomes clear. These moments feel intentional, not magical, not mystical, intentional. They hit with a precision that statistics alone struggle to explain. And the deeper issue is not their rarity, but their relevance. Why this person? Why this event? Why this exact timing? Why does it arrive in the exact emotional context where it matters? People across cultures report the same uncanny feeling, as if something behind the scenes nudges reality into alignment for just a moment, a small adjustment, a quiet correction, a glitch that reveals the seams in the world. So we ask a question that most people avoid, because it forces us to confront our assumptions about how reality works. What if these glitches aren't random at all? What if they're clues? What if they're the slipstreams of a much deeper structure, something that operates beneath the visible world, like a hidden operating system that occasionally reveals itself? For centuries, thinkers tried to understand these strange alignments. In every era, people tried naming them: fate, omen, synchronicity, divine timing, the language of the unconscious. Different labels, same phenomenon. So today, we do not simply recount anecdotes, we examine them. We follow them. We look at what they imply about the nature of reality itself. Because if these moments are real, not imagined, not exaggerated, not misremembered, then they carry consequences for how we understand time, causality, consciousness, and the fabric of the universe. And that is where our journey begins. We're often told that coincidence is nothing more than mathematics unfolding in the background of our lives. Large populations, countless events, endless combinations, and eventually, something strange is bound to happen. This explanation is comforting, because it demands nothing from us. It lets us believe the universe is mechanical, predictable, indifferent. But it breaks down when we look at how these moments occur. Not just that they happen, but when and why. Because coincidences tend to cluster around emotional thresholds. Moments of decision, crisis, loss, longing, transformation. This is the part probability struggles to explain. Randomness doesn't time itself with precision or personal relevance. Yet these moments often strike with both. Think of the times synchronicities appear. You're considering a major choice, and an unexpected sign aligns with your thoughts in a way you can't easily dismiss. You're grieving, and the world echoes the person you lost in ways too pointed to ignore. You're wrestling with doubt, and an external event mirrors your internal struggle. These patterns push us toward uncomfortable questions. If coincidence is entirely random, why does it seem to interact with our inner world at the exact moments when it carries the most weight? Ancient philosophers argued that chance is not pure chaos. It is what we call order when we fail to understand its principles. Modern science, too, shows that what appears random often hides deeper structures we simply haven't uncovered yet. Turbulence, quantum fluctuations, genetic mutations. The pattern is only invisible until the tools catch up. So perhaps the veil of chance isn't proof of randomness at all. Perhaps it's evidence of underlying order, an order we haven't yet learned to interpret. And if that's true, then coincidence isn't background noise. It's a signal we've mistaken for static. Carl Jung introduced the term synchronicity to describe meaningful coincidences that lack a physical cause. Two events, unrelated in mechanics, yet deeply connected in significance. He believed that meaning itself could bind events together, the same way gravity binds planets or magnetism binds particles. This idea challenged the prevailing worldview. Scientists dismissed meaning as subjective, unreliable, unquantifiable. But Jung insisted that subjective meaning could reflect objective structure, that the psyche and the world were not separate compartments, but interwoven systems. Consider how often synchronicity arrives with emotional resonance. A symbol you've been contemplating appears in an unexpected place. A person who represents an unresolved part of your life returns at a moment of inner conflict. A phrase mirrors a thought you've kept hidden, as if the world is revealing your private interior back to you. Some describe these moments as the universe speaking. Others see them as bridges between unconscious processes and external events. In either case, synchronicity dissolves the boundary between inner and outer, between thought and event, desire and reality, mind and world. This is not magic, and it's not superstition. It's a hypothesis about how reality might be structured. Ancient thinkers called it the sympathy of all things, the idea that the world responds to itself through hidden correspondences. Modern physics expresses similar ideas through entanglement, fields, and information theory. Synchronicity invites us to consider that meaning might not be a human invention. It might be woven into reality, waiting for moments when the inner and outer worlds align with unusual clarity. And when that alignment happens, it feels less like coincidence and more like revelation. Before we accept any extraordinary explanation, we must confront a humbling truth. The human brain is a pattern-making machine. It evolved to detect structure, even in chaos, because false positives were safer than false negatives. Better to mistake a shadow for a predator than to ignore the rustle that meant danger. This tendency shapes our perception of synchronicity. Sometimes a pattern appears simply because we're primed to see it. A number repeats because we've been thinking about it. A phrase stands out because our mind is scanning for relevance. But here's where the reductive explanation collapses. Pattern seeking can explain vague coincidences, but not razor-sharp ones. Not the ones that align with our private thoughts, unresolved dilemmas, or deeply personal symbols. Not the ones that arrive at perfect emotional timing. Probability doesn't select meaningful targets. The unconscious mind cannot manipulate external events, and yet synchronicities often feel precisely targeted. This leads to a more provocative question. What if pattern seeking is not only a bug of the mind, but a feature of reality? What if consciousness itself is tuned to notice certain alignments because those alignments matter? Simulation theory offers one interpretation. A universe behaving like a computational system might generate overlapping sequences of information that occasionally intersect in meaningful ways, the same way software variables collide. A coincidence, in that sense, would be a debugging artifact of existence. Alternately, the structure of reality might be more fluid than we assume, with consciousness influencing or selecting certain outcomes from a range of possibilities, not through magic, but through information exchange we don't yet understand. Pattern seeking is real, but it doesn't explain everything. Sometimes the pattern is in the mind. Sometimes the pattern is in the world. And sometimes the pattern forms exactly where the two meet. There is a different class of anomaly that doesn't live in the private mind, but in the collective mind, shared glitches, experienced by thousands. The Mandela effect is the most famous example. Large groups of people remember events, spellings, or details that never occurred in this timeline. Skeptics attribute this to social reinforcement and weak memory. But that explanation becomes fragile when the shared misremembering forms a coherent alternative version of history. Then there are dreams, not vague symbolic dreams, but specific ones. Dreams that later unfold exactly. Stories of people seeing a future scene, word for word, gesture for gesture. Science brushes these aside, but their consistency across cultures makes them hard to ignore. Déjà vu adds another layer. That instant recognition, the sense of reliving a moment that feels scripted. Some theories say it's a memory glitch. Others suggest it's the brain briefly syncing with a future state. Ancient cultures believed the mind could perceive time non-linearly. Modern theories describe consciousness as a predictive engine, constantly modeling the future. But sometimes the prediction becomes too exact to dismiss, too detailed, too perfect. Quantum physics adds fuel to the fire. Entangled particles act as one system across distance. Information seems to move faster than light, violating classical assumptions. If the universe is built on interconnectedness at its most fundamental level, then perhaps synchronicity, premonition, déjà vu, and collective memory distortions are simply echoes of that deeper unity. Not supernatural, not paranormal. Just unmeasured dimensions of a reality we haven't fully mapped. Not because the universe begins speaking, but because they begin listening. Patterns emerge, decisions sharpen, intuition strengthens. Synchronicity becomes a mirror, a reflection of what occupies the deeper layers of the mind, and sometimes a reflection of how the external world responds. In psychology, this is called coherence. the alignment between inner perception and outer action. In philosophy, it's the moment when understanding meets experience. In physics, it's when a system reveals its underlying structure. Whether these moments are messages, metaphors, or misfires does not matter as much as the effect they have. They pull us into the present. They demand reflection. They force us to reconsider the assumption that reality is a closed, silent system. Perhaps that is the real glitch, not the moment itself, but the realization that the universe might be more interactive than we thought. So now we arrive at the question you must answer for yourself. What do you do with these moments? You observe them. You record them. You compare them. You treat them as data, not superstition. Notice when they happen. Notice what you were thinking, feeling, deciding. Notice the timing. Notice the alignment. Are they reflections of your inner world, signals from a deeper structure, or fragments of a reality whose operating system is still far beyond our understanding? Only patterns reveal truth, and patterns require repetition. So pay attention, share your experiences, see how they line up with the stories of others. Because if there is a hidden architecture beneath reality, these glitches may be the only openings we ever get. Look closely. You might find that reality is far stranger and far more connected than you ever imagined.